Good morning, this is Angela with Parkrose Permaculture. It is really windy off and on this morning, so I may end up moving this video inside, but let's see how we do here and if I can get a little bit of it done out in my front yard of my permaculture garden here in Portland, Oregon. I want to start today by showing you something that I picked up unexpectedly yesterday, and it's here in the back of my ancient minivan. So let me open up here. Oh goodness, the wind is definitely picking up. Okay, so let's see if it's a little bit less windy. So yesterday, I was on my way to pick up a big bundle of sheets that I had gotten on Buy Nothing that were gifted to me. And I'll be talking about that more later in this video. So Buy Nothing is a great resource if you have it in your community. It's a way to gift along things that you don't need. In fact, I got these earrings on Buy Nothing. That's why I'm wearing them today. And it's a way to pass along not only resources, but sometimes services that you have that you can share with those in your neighborhood. It's hyper local. It's based just in your neighborhood. And folks list things that they want to pass along instead of selling them in a resale group or donating them to the thrift store. It's a way to connect one-on-one with people in your community and share things that you know will benefit them. And at the same time, it's a blessing and a pleasure for you to be able to share something that no longer needs a place in your home, but is something you know somebody else will benefit from. I couldn't walk because it was like an hour and 15-minute round trip walk, and it was too big of a bundle of sheets. Otherwise, I totally would have walked. But it was fortunate, serendipitous, that I didn't end up walking and I took my minivan, because on the way home, ta-da, there was a giant pile of logs by the side of the road with a free sign on them. Someone had obviously just taken out a tree. All right, well, I've moved inside. Obviously, the wind was really picking up out there, and I figured the minimal amount of budgie and dog and kid noise that will accompany me filming in my living room is far preferable to the horrible wind crackle static on the microphone of staying outside. So as beautiful and sunny as it is today, it's just very blustery. So let's knock out the rest of this video here indoors. Now, I mentioned I stumbled upon this free firewood on my way home from picking up sheets via Buy Nothing. If you aren't familiar with Buy Nothing, they are local community-focused groups that offer gift economy services that are based in your neighborhood. And the Buy Nothing project began in 2013 as a way to kind of rekindle hyper-local community and to foster the gift economy. So what is a gift economy? Well, first, let's look at the kind of economy that we are submersed in right now. Here in America, we have a capitalist consumerist culture. It's a culture that is inherently extractive in the way that it operates. And you know, this is a permaculture channel. I am interested in permaculture design, permaculture systems, which is inherently based in regenerative living and abundance focus. And that is really antithetical, I've talked about it in the past, to the consumer culture that we live in, that we have to operate in on a daily basis. And so there's this constant tension between the way I want to live, the way that is regenerative and sustainable, not only for the planet, but for communities of people, and the reality of the consumer culture that we live in. Similarly, we function in a market economy. That is an economy that is self-serving and greed-based. And I'll get into that more later. I know that's uncomfortable and like maybe feels a little accusatory, but that's the reality of the situation. It is a concept built on scarcity. Our market economy functions out of a scarcity mindset. Now, next to the market economy, we have the barter economy, and that's something that's gained a lot of popularity. Obviously, it is a very old system that sees these kind of spurts of resurgence now and again, where you remove money from the equation. Goods and services are still exchanged, but they are exchanged without money. So it is still a contractual process. It is still an exchange-based process. It's just absent money. In both the market economy and the barter economy, the act of acquiring something is in itself a pleasurable experience, right? The acquisition is a pleasurable experience. Goods and services have value, and their acquisition is deemed inherently good. The more you can acquire, the better becomes the root message. And maybe y'all will argue with me in the comments about that, but in American culture, that's very, very much the reality, right? The inherent consumption and acquisition of stuff is deemed a moral good in its own right, is deemed a benefit regardless of anything else. So let's contrast here for a moment the market economy and the gift economy, which is seeing this kind of blossoming. Now, the gift economy is a community-focused system. It is a system that serves the needs of a local community, where the act of giving is the pleasure, not the acquisition of stuff or the receiving of services, but it is the giving that contains the pleasure. The focus is on meeting needs and the joy of helping someone else meet their needs. It is an abundance-based model, not an extraction-based model. So before Buy Nothing, we had things like Free Cycle, which I'm actually not really sure Free Cycle still exists or not. 15 or 20 years ago, I used it on a regular basis, and it was like an email list where folks would post things that they had that they wanted to gift along to someone in the community. And then there would be regular events, depending on where you lived, they might have been monthly or quarterly, where you would just bring everything, and it would be like a flea market, but everything was for free. There would be tables, and sometimes someone would coordinate bringing snacks, and everybody in your community who was interested would gather and bring things that they wanted to pass along, things that they wanted to gift to other people. Or sometimes folks would gift services as well, like I'm available to help you with putting together your chicken coop, or I'm available to help with pruning your trees. And that was a really, really wonderful resource. Free Cycle, I think, kind of struggled because it was email based, and that made it inaccessible for some folks, and also made it kind of like slow and clunky. By the time you replied to an email, somebody else already got the item. So having something like Buy Nothing operate based on Facebook makes for a nice turnaround time. It makes it much more accessible for a lot of folks, although again, not perfect because not everybody has the Book of Faces, but it is a really nice kind of evolution of Free Cycle. Okay, now also there's Craigslist Free Page, which is how I get almost all of my firewood. The firewood I got yesterday is probably the exception to the rule. I love seeing a pile of firewood with a free sign on it on the side of the road after someone's trimmed their trees. But here in Portland, Craigslist Free Page, because I live in an urban area and folks are always trimming trees or having trees cut down, there's constantly a source of free wood. And Craigslist Free Page operates on a platform that is a monetary market platform where folks are buying and selling goods and services. But the free page is where folks can list things for free. So that's been around forever. So there's been lots of gift economy options that have been out there, but Buy Nothing is just the latest iteration. So when we're thinking about a gift economy, there are some elements, some institutions in our market-based economy that embody the spirit of a gift economy. I can think of public libraries, public radio, and perhaps community gardens. These are all kind of like zone 4 in permaculture. I've talked about the use of community spaces and community resources. And in the past, I'll put a video up here. So those things are, yes, they're funded by tax dollars, but they are places where you can access media and literature and land and water without having to pay for it, without having to have a monetary exchange. Those are places that we all really value as institutions and that are really meaningful and support local communities and support community connection without it being market-based, right? So many places where we have social spaces in American culture are inherently based around consumerism and meeting at a coffee shop, going shopping with your girlfriends, going to a movie. These are places where you have to spend money and participate in the market economy to build community. But places like community gardens and enjoyment of public concerts or listening to some kind of like public radio or going to the library, those are spaces that are exempt from the market economy in terms of our community access. Okay, so one that folks kind of raise up when they talk about gift economy that really is completely commingled with market economy, and maybe there are some good lessons we can learn from it and some ways we can start to think a little bit more gift economy minded, is looking at Patreon or PayPal. And this is kind of like, I don't know, I've tried to film this segment like 4 or 5 times and have really failed. So Patreon is a capitalist platform. It's a money-making platform for the app that runs it, right? For that business. It is a business. And yet it still has elements of a gift economy that kind of speak to me, right? So I create content for free. There's no paywall for anything that I make. Anyone can access it for free, and you don't have to give anything back. Patreon is a platform that was created so that when folks appreciate something a creator makes for free, they can choose to gift them something. And it's not perfect. It kind of removes the transactional aspect of you don't have to pay to access what I create. But don't be fooled. It is still a transactional platform that is used. And there's a lot of problems with it. There's a lot of fees for the creators. I love the idea of folks can create content without expectation of payment. And then other folks can say, wow, I really value the labor that you did. I really value the material that you shared. And I want to say thank you. And so they give that way. But I wonder what the gift economy would look like. Libraries and public radio, but also things like Patreon or like throwing some bucks at somebody's PayPal because you enjoyed what they make. What those would look like if they were completely decoupled from the market economy. My friend Effie always bears the brunt of my complaining in DMs about how I hate money. I hate money. I hate that our society runs on money and all of the problems that causes and all of the exploitation that causes. And I hate having to think about money at all, how much it limits us as human beings, how much it limits us and how much it harms us and harms the planet. And so I think a lot like, what would the gift economy, what would our whole economy look like if it was completely decoupled from the concept of money and from the market, and it could be truly gift-based? A true gift economy fosters interdependence of communities. In our American society that worships rugged individualism, that like idolizes rugged individualism in a very bizarre way, an unhealthy way, the notion of having a gift economy that's not about one person getting ahead or you getting ahead or pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is a really strange notion. The notion of community interdependence at all is kind of strange to Americans. The notion of using a gift economy system can feel odd to us because it's not hierarchical. There are no chains. There's no ladder to climb. For me, I think about the gift economy cyclically, right? It feels like I gift and then gifts come back to me, right? I give and I get pleasure in the giving of the gift. And then somebody else gets pleasure in giving a gift back to me. It feels really cyclical. It feels like the water cycle, right? So the water, there is this finite amount of water on our planet, and it is just cycled through all of the places that it is needed, right? And I think about the gift economy that way, that it's cyclical and it's about resources moving through the system in a way that it comes back to you when you need it. That probably sounds really idealistic to a lot of people. In the same way that the water cycle is life-giving, I think that the gift economy can be similarly life-giving. Not only to us as individuals, but to breathe life back into our struggling local communities. Another thing I think about with the gift economy is how the concepts of caregiving, blessing, provision, giving in general are at the forefront in a gift economy. It's not what can I get? It's not accumulation of stuff. It's not about money in the bank. It's just a totally different outlook. And to me, when I think about that in the gift economy, that it's about the work of blessing others, the giving and passing on that is the blessing to me and to somebody else, that feels really matriarchal to me. Like making dinner for my family, that feels like a gift economy exercise. Mothering young children, and when I gave my kids the gift of my time and energy and the sacrifice of doing something else with that period of my life, that feels like the gift economy. The same way that my mother cared for me when I was little, the circle has now moved on to me caring for my children. I pass the gift along as it is needed for somebody else. And as I was thinking about this, I actually did a little bit of Googling, like, is there anybody else who thinks that the gift economy feels matriarchal? And there's actually a book, it's called The Maternal Roots of the Gift Economy by Genevieve Dawn, and I've added it to my queue. I haven't read it, so I don't want to give it as a recommendation, but clearly I'm not the only person thinking about this. So I'm looking forward to reading that in the very near future, because I think there's a lot we can learn from mothers and from women about how a non-market economy would work, how an economy based on the gift of service and the gift of ourselves would work. So I put together 5 kind of principles that encapsulate the way that I think about a gift economy. Number 1 is there's no prices and no fees. So everything is truly a gift. There is no money that is exchanged, and it is not a barter system. There is no transactional nature to the way a gift economy works. Number 2, it is voluntary and inclusive. You cannot be forced to give your services. You cannot be forced to give your material possessions. Inclusive in that we make sure it's accessible so everybody who wants to give, because remember, it is the giving that is the pleasurable experience. Everybody has a right to access the giving and the receiving. Number 3, give in proportion to our ability and from our own abundance. I know the Buy Nothing group talks about that too, giving from your abundance. And we want to make sure that it does not become competitive. Americans are super competitive. It does not become competitive, like somebody is giving more than somebody else, or somebody is being the recipient more often than somebody else. It's about giving out of our ability, and we all have differing levels of ability, and out of our own abundance, and we all have differing levels of abundance. Number 4, a gift economy is community focused. It's about interdependence and accessibility within local communities. It builds bonds. It is about making sure the needs of our communities are met. And in that way, our own needs are met. So number 5, sustainability focused. I think about the Gandhi quote that there should be enough for everyone's needs, but not enough for everyone's greed. Think about our relationship not only with other people in our community in terms of how we spend our time and how we accumulate resources and how we pass those along, but also think about the planet as well as our local community. So really quickly here at the end, I want to talk about a podcast that I listened to yesterday. I've talked in the past about how I love the Green Dreamer podcast. And the episode that I heard was about a philanthropist named Edgar Villanueva. And it talks about kind of the problems of philanthropy as an industry. And so I want to be careful we're not conflating the gift economy with the philanthropy industry. And it really is an industry. It's an industry fueled by the extremely rich with generational wealth that is rooted in the exploitation of others in the planet. And that makes it part of the market economy. So just be aware that we aren't commingling those things. It was a great podcast, and I'll link to it down below, because they talk about Edgar talks about the idea of using money as medicine. So when we are stuck in a market economy here, when we don't have the option to always utilize a gift economy, how do we make sure that our relationship with money is not toxic? Permaculture says the problem is the solution. How do we take something poisonous and corrupting like a market economy, like consumerism, and turn it into medicine and turn it into a tool for healing? And I think that we have to balance our way we approach money and as much as we possibly can engaging in the gift economy while still needing to operate in a market economy. Again, that tension that I talked about before, we have to operate in tension because our ideals don't always match the reality of the world that we live in. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the gift economy. How can we as individuals transition more and more from consumer culture toward true resilience? And how can our culture do the same thing? How can we utilize the gift economy and expand it, not only as a way to be a blessing for us as individuals, as a source of pleasure and contentment, but also as a way to transform our culture away from an extractive way of living and toward a regenerative way. If you enjoyed this video, as always, you can check out my PayPal and my Patreon down below. Thanks.